Morning and welcome to the Really Helpful Club and our In Conversation with series. And this morning I'm going to be joined by Sophie Benge, who is a feminine embodiment coach and a thought leader. And my name is Sarah Austin, and this is our In Conversation series where we shine the spotlight on different entrepreneurs, business leaders, thought leaders, all leaders in their field. And we get to know them and hear about the inspiration behind their business, what makes them tick. And I think really importantly, learn from them some of the insights that they have learned along the way of running their business, the inspiration behind it. And we all know that running a business is never a straight line, and it's a constant learning journey. And that's the purpose behind this series that we're running, is to understand the person behind the business. Now, I'm going to be joined by Sophie. I'm just going to send Sophie an invitation to join me, and this always takes a little while. Sophie, you an invite. So I hope you get that in your inbox somewhere. Here she goes. Gosh, that was quick. And this is always a miracle, I think, where it's like an assembly invite where you request to join, and is that kind of the mysteries, the wonders, and also the fears and terrifying things of, you know, doing stuff on Instagram and the internet and social media and stuff. And I'm just going to move my phone a little bit because I've kind of shoved up to the top of the screen. So Sophie, say good morning. Say hello to everyone.
Good morning, Sarah. Hello, everybody.
Nice to see you, and well done for joining. And so looking great. So look, Sophie, what I was explaining is that I love this In Conversation series. I think you are my 45th or 46th interviewee. So so I love this. I've got to know a lot of people during this series, and the whole thing of what we're doing here is shining the spotlight on you, learning about your journey, where you come from, what you've learned along the way. And I think it's such an important part of the ingredients and the makeup as to how you've ended up doing what you do. And I think leads very naturally to the inspiration behind what you do and how you help people with, you know, with your different services and things. So look, I mean, I've explained you're a feminine embodiment coach, which is, I think, the most fantastic title. But let's we'll get to that in a second, what that is, because I think it's, you know, it's intriguing, it's interesting, and we all want to know about it. But let's kind of rewind to Sophie Benge, you know, where it all started, your background, your journey, because I think it's so important. The journey to where you are now is every bit as important as the destination itself. So tell us a bit about Sophie and, you know, how you come to be where you are.
Well, I always describe myself as a messenger. I think that's my calling, and I professionally have been a journalist all of my life. Started on the student newspaper, then the local newspaper, and then I went to London, to the big bright lights of Fleet Street, which really didn't work out, and I was rather terrorized by one of those traditional Fleet Street bosses, and it was all too much. And so I then became a proper member of the filth generation. And I don't know if you've ever come across that term, which translates as failed in London, try Hong Kong. And,
okay. I will remember that. And I do have a few friends who are signed up members of the filth. Okay, fantastic, love it.
So
okay.
Hong Kong was the land of opportunity in the 90s when it was quite hard work here. So I showed up very easy. I worked on the South China Morning Post and then became editor of Elle Decoration for the region, which was a beautiful job, and it sent us around Asia, visiting gorgeous houses, meeting designers, and it was very much a dream job. But it was while I was traveling Asia in my role at Elle Decoration that I fell in love with the wellness traditions there. And that would be things like being massaged by monks in temples in Bangkok, or meeting princesses in palaces in Java and learning about the spices and their traditional beauty rituals. And my interest was sparked, and I wrote my first book on the traditional spa and wellness culture of Asia, And then that sort of by default has taken me into the wellness industry, where I've been working ever since.
Goodness. Wow. Okay. So so actually that's interesting. I didn't know about the Hong Kong bit. And so yeah, and actually isn't it interesting? I mean, we'll come on to talk about what you do in just a sec. But I think that is again, I mean, it's so interesting, these interviews that I do, because we learn so much about the triggers in people's lives, how they kind of end up doing the thing that excites them, that interests them, and it's their passion, but they don't necessarily start in that field, and they think they're pursuing a passion, and then something happens, a bit like, you know, you and being drawn into the wellness culture. That's where the passion really came from, although you set off in life presumably thinking journalism was it. This was, you know, and obviously writing a book. And so it's those triggers, it's those chapters which I think are so interesting in our lives, that, you know, they're okay, they work at that stage in our life, and then it's okay to close that chapter and move in to the next thing, and the next thing which really interests you and excites you for that stage in your life.
I think that's true. I would just counter that in my case, because I still am a journalist, and it's still very much in my blood, and I still do write. I've just come back from a plant medicine retreat where I've been taking magic mushrooms under a therapeutic ceremonial situation, and I'm writing about that, and I'm writing about a menopause detox program in a spa in Austria coming up. So I still write, and I think it is because I write, and because I've that has taken me into so many avenues within the wellness industry, that I've garnered all this knowledge and understanding of different approaches to holistic well-being, and I'm still learning. I think we're always still learning. So my messenger hat is still there. I now just perhaps combine this professional experience with my own personal journey, and then become a messenger for other women. That's what I like to do now. Yes.
Love it. So let's talk about women and well-being, and this sort of sense of being a messenger. So tell us about your particular approach to women's well-being, and how that manifests itself.
Well, I'm really passionate to support women and encourage them to connect with their authentic feminine selves, which I know can sound a little sort of nebulous and vague, but I think there's such a well of wisdom and authority and joy that resides within us, but we're somehow a little bit disconnected from that, and that's through no fault of our own. Lots of reasons. We live in a society that takes us up into our heads, and we're striving to be worthwhile, we're goal orientated, we're always living in a mild state of fight or flight in the sympathetic part of our nervous system, which disconnects us from our bodies. And I think living like this is not entirely in tune with our innate nature of women, because we are very body-centered, but we just have lost connection. And my passion is to bring women back to their authentic feminine selves through embodiment practices, through reflection, and through, it's in us all. It's just a question of reactivating it. And this is what I want to do, because this is what is my passion, because when we are living more in tune with this well inside, life just seems to flow more. We're happier. We either magnetize into our life more of what we want. It's a little bit as if it's like magic.
Yeah. Well, I love the word that you use about connection and authenticity as well, because I think that we all know, you feel that inside you, that when that connection happens, when that sense of expressing yourself and being the true you, then everything comes together and clicks. And you know, I hear you talk about joy so much, and happiness, and it's like there's an inner happiness that's there waiting to be unleashed, isn't it?
You've got it absolutely, Sarah. You're absolutely right. It's not really rocket science. It's just that I think through a lot of social conditioning and societal conditioning, we're living and operating, as I said, from our heads, whereas we just need a little bit of practice to nurture this intuition, the pleasure and this authority that resides within. It's just reawakening it, really, which is what I call one of my courses. And we do that through our bodies, we do that through our senses, and just reorientating ourselves a little bit to come from here and then bring up the balance a little bit from here.
Well, I'm sure that you know, we've got quite a lot of people who've tuned into this. I'm sure they have been really interested. I mean, we've shared this on our different social media channels to say that, you know, we were going to be doing this chat today, and so I'm sure there's loads of you who have tuned in who will want to know a bit more about Sophie. Maybe you've got a question for her. The great thing is that the question gets asked effectively anonymously, so you know, you can put something in the comment box. We'll ask that question. This is your chance to ask it anything you like. And I bet you anybody else on the call will be thrilled to bits that you know, they've popped it in there. And equally, if you've you know, used Sophie, gone on one of her treats that she's going to talk about, or you know, worked with her one of her workshops, and you want to share something about it, a story or a testimonial, again, please pop it in the chat box, because I think, Sophie, one of the key things with you is actually understanding what you do, and you know, and how you can help women, because I think this is incredibly sort of untapped potential. This is really important. So tell us a little bit about the art of being she, and how you've gone from, you know, this journalist, this author, this passion for holistic well-being, you know, this desire, you know, to untap this authentic self in all of us, to you know, to a business, a service that you offer. So tell us about the inspiration behind it.
Well, it started about 5 years ago, when back with the messenger thing again. I brought my professional experience of 25 years of understanding wellness from around the world, and my personal journey of overcoming hurdles in my own life, my broken marriage and failed relationships. And I brought these to, on top of which at that time, you know, the menopause. And 5 years ago, the menopause wasn't such a noisy conversation as it is now. And so in my messenger capacity, I started off doing retreats, bringing hormone doctors and nutritionists and exercise specialists and sexual therapists, all things that we want to learn more about in midlife as our hormones drop off and we feel invisible and we lose self-esteem. So the physical, the emotional, the mental things. And what I found was women really loved this, and they would come to learn a bit more about what they can do for their hormones or their weight or exercise. But when they left, they really got probably even more out of joining with other women, tapping into their sensual selves, being in a safe place where they could share and be vulnerable, play. We did a lot of play and dancing and movement and understanding a bit more about our sensual selves. And as the menopause conversation became more widespread, I decided to focus more on the sensual side, the embodied side, because it was a passion for me. And there's a lot of information out there on exercise and diet and hormones now, but as you said, there's less sort of understanding of our innate femininity, our sexual energy. So I wanted to segue into that direction, and which I have done with my courses, my workshops and my retreats, which I can explain a little bit more about if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for that. And it's because again, I imagine a lot of people are watching this either now or they're catching up afterwards, and they're going, okay, this is really resonating with me. I like this sense of awakening. I like this sense of, it's like, you know, approaching my life, myself in a different way. So okay, look, I want to get in touch with you. I want to find out more. What would they get from you? You know, what are the services you offer? Tell us a little bit about the retreats. You know, tell us some stories about what people get from, you know, coming and working with you, or you know, consulting with you, or you know, becoming part of your connected community.
Well, there's various ways that I connect with people. So I think it's great when women come together, because we're really hardwired, I think, for community. We're hardwired to share, and we irrigate each other. We get so much from each other's energy, and we learn so much just by being together. So I love to do workshops and retreats in person. So it depends. I have various different formulas, really. So one of the in-person workshops that I do, and I do these regularly, I do them for myself, for other people's platforms, and for spas around the world, but is bringing women together. And so we're doing this connection through our senses, really. So we breathe. I teach breathing practices, I teach movement practices, I teach touch practices, and we do all this together. And so we really sort of alchemize our energies through our bodies. And it sounds a little bit amorphous, but when we're actually doing it, it gathers its own momentum. And I take my practices from Tantra, from Taoism, from neuroscience, and from my own spiritual journeying, and just being playful women together, because as I said at the beginning, we're so structured, and it's great to sort of kick back, and we get so much sort of by osmosis. So, and then I do another workshop which is really more focused on our sexual energy. So we do an anatomical refresher, I call it, where we journey around our genital map, really, understanding the position, purpose, and pleasure of our parts of our vulva and vagina. And people think, well, I know that, which we do, but I find that there's always more to learn. And then my big mantra is, whatever we take into our heads, we should embed in our body, because that's when we create the experience that stays with us. So with this one, we do a guided visualization that takes us down to our pelvic area. And women always say afterwards, oh, I can actually feel the energy in my pelvic bowl, and I feel as though it's swept out, and I feel connection, and I feel warmth. And that's really what brings me joy, because it's these little and often practices of connecting inside without much thought, not much thought necessary, that they're sort of almost by osmosis brings more flow to our day-to-day. So we do that, and then I do retreats, and I bring other practitioners, sound healers, yoga teachers, and we spend days together doing these workshops and sharing, partaking in embodiment practices. I often choose places where there's a hammam, and we scrub each other. We go back to that primal red tent, women together, just like in traditional rural communities. It's so powerful. It's hard to put into words. It's just a really pleasurable and uplifting experience.
I think, you talked a little bit earlier about a reawakening. I think it's also a sense of reaffirming as well. And it's a reconnection with where, as you talked about, a sort of primary, it's where we come from. And that it's a resensitization of I guess sort of not a rejection of what we are like as a society and a people, but it's actually taking yourself out and reconnecting with yourselves and reconnecting with those around you as well, and rediscovering.
Absolutely. And when you say that, it makes me think that a lot of times, don't we as women, we put ourselves at the bottom of our to-do list because we are mothers, we have jobs, we are wives. So we're always there for others. And what I would say to that is, it's not selfish to take some time out and work on yourself, because when you do, you show up a lot more fluidly, and you show up more for those around you. That you're investing in yourself in order to invest more fruitfully and wholefully in your friends, family, job, husband. And it really does work like that. And we're so good at negative self-talk as women, especially in midlife. So we start to sort of feel invisible, and the hormones that have powered the way we operate drop off, and then we get a little bit discombobulated and question ourselves and our validity, our esteem, confidence, all of that. It's all part of the midlife journey. So as you say, step back, rediscover, and then show up more brightly.
Love it. And I'm sure this is resonating a lot with anyone that's watching. And it's, yeah, it's definitely a sense of, you know, reaffirming. So look, I mean, I think what you're doing is extremely unusual and you know, and unique perhaps in itself. I don't know. But what do you think about what you offer that makes you stand out from other people, that is, you know, is unique? What's different about coming on a retreat or coming to see you, Sophie, than you know, finding someone else?
Oh, beg your pardon, I should just say that I do also do one-on-one consultations with
Yes.
with people, and really I just sort of, I give them the ideas from the benefit of my knowledge and understanding, and I also refer people to other practitioners. I have a black book of tried and tested people, from hormone doctors to sexuality coaches to the more unusual modalities of breathing. Breath work, I think, is very, very important. Different types of touch practices. So I also refer people on, and I also have an online course which you can download, which is all about connecting to our sensualities. You say it's a little bit different, and you can download this, and I teach you ways to connect with your sensuality, your sexuality, through body, through sound, through movement, through breathing. And you can dip in and try these at home, and they're all backed up with resources. So if you're feeling, it gives you a little bit of a sense of anonymity, and you can try and dip in. But when you say what's different, I don't think there are many retreats or workshops out there that really focus on this whole idea of the feminine, of our feminine power, and what that actually means. And I also think there's not a lot that's freely, that's obvious, talking around about our sexuality in a way that is wholesome. I still think that sexuality is a taboo subject. We've grown up with mixed messages around it, despite the sexual revolution was 60 years ago. But I still think women, especially of our generation, you know, we've been objectified and subject of the male gaze. We were either the Madonna or we were the whore, and we in our education, sexuality was so, it was taught in such a mechanical way that I think we're slightly disempowered as to our sexuality. We're a little bit confused, and we've suppressed our needs and desires just because of the conditioning that we've been brought up with. So I'm really passionate to help women in their own way try to have a healthy relationship with our sexuality, which isn't taboo or which is wholesome. As you say, it's where we come from. We're born of an orgasm. We wouldn't all really be here if it wasn't for that. And I think we owe it to ourselves as women to find a more sacred relationship with our sexuality, and not box it off into the bedroom, and allow it to be part of our daily life, because it gives us a sense of power and creativity. It helps us find our creative voice, helps us seek a spiritual path. As Tantra says, eros, our erotic power, spreads a lot further than the act of sex.
And I think it's really interesting what you say, because I think that there is now so much conversation about mental well-being. I think there is, you know, an emotional literacy as well, and increasingly a sense of financial well-being, and that, you know, that relationship with our own mental health and things. But I still think that there is very little conversation around sexual well-being and our sexual health. And I think what you're saying here is that how everything is interrelated, and you know, and so our our ultimate health, our ultimate well-being, is you need all these areas to, you know,
Yes.
to be a place of joy, to be a place of understanding, a place of, you know, breaking the taboos, breaking breaking the obstacles to talking about stuff, because actually that's what leads to conversation and leads to well-being. So listen, I'm just going to read this comment because this is so nice. So Sam, thanks for popping us on. It's so refreshing to hear Sophie talk about connecting to our central energy over 50. It's very energizing and empowering. Sam, I completely agree with you. I mean, I feel like I could listen to it all day. I mean, it's because it makes you feel good, right? It's and you're saying, yeah, why aren't we talking about this more? Why aren't we doing this more? Why aren't we sort of sharing this? And I think it sort of, that might well come back to the, you know, going back to what you were saying earlier about sort of the patriarchal society, the objectification of women, and, you know, and I think we've come a long way since then, but there's still taboos, there's still a lot of underlying hesitation about this sense of connection, I think.
And I think that's why it's so precious that we are bringing it into a collective conversation. And even in our small way, working with a few people or coming together as a group, we support each other and then raise our frequency, if you like. And I mean, I have followed a spiritual path, so I also believe that even casting a spotlight in a small way, that it sort of reaches out to a greater universal consciousness, and other women pick up on this, and we owe it, you know, to each other, to nurture each other. And, you know, just to bring it back a little bit, what happens with your friend who made a comment, often we hear, don't we, that after we've been married for a number of years and because we're tired and we're doing other things, the sexual relationships with our partner becomes again drops down the list. And I think it's sad that it does, because we want to rekindle this, and I think we're often given tips to spice up your sex life, which can have a date night, talk to your partner, you know, there's a plethora of sex toys now, or use lube, but all of this is fine, but it can be quite unappealing and unattractive if we're not, first of all, in a respectful relationship with ourselves and our own bodies. And it's an inside job. It starts with us, and then as I said, it has a ripple effect, and then we attract into our life more of what we want, and we also attract healthier, intimate relations with our partners. Men sort of follow. Women, we need to lead the way in this. We're sort of, and when we're more cognizant, so everything improves in that area, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think a lot of this comes back to as well is that strength of the relationship. This is about mutual love, mutual respect, mutual consent, and a desire to, you know, to be connected to, you know, to your partner. Yeah. So I'm loving this, but let's talk a little bit about, I mean, it's really interesting how you know, you talk about the different retreats where obviously those happen in person, and then you're talking about this downloadable course. You know, what interests me is, you know, what you've done in the last 2 years, because I imagine that the pandemic and, you know, this disconnection that happened, and in many ways we were connected obviously virtually, but the disconnection, I think, has been really profound. And what have you done to, I guess, to adapt to what your clients are asking for and needing, and how have you responded in the last couple of years to the changing environment, and, you know, what can you do to help your clients?
Well, the pandemic environment was my opportunity to write and create my downloadable course, which has been professionally filmed, and it's very, very beautiful. There's no iPhone in my back, but because I believe that sensuality is all of our senses. Everything must sort of be beautiful, and it helps to feed our feminine selves, if you like. So I did retreats and workshops in person more around the menopause before the pandemic, and it was during the pandemic times that I wrote this course and focused more on awakening our sensual aliveness. So it was an opportunity for me in many ways. And then I did my workshops online, and I still do. So I think, yeah, really, that was how the pandemic was for me. It was an opportunity to be creative and hone my new direction, if you like, or a segue from my direction into the online stuff. But to be perfectly honest, I prefer, if it's online, I mean, it's always better when women are together because of that energy. But again, these things, these workshops do work quite well online, and I work for various other platforms as well, because there's a sense of anonymity and safety when you're online. And that also does, to be honest, that does work too for the nature of this topic.
And let's face it, you know, we're all different. You know, the end objective, I suppose, is the same, is to find that reawakening, find that sense of joy. But everybody will want to get there in their own particular way. And from from your perspective, it opened up opportunity and meant that actually you could extend your reach. So in many ways, as you say, it becomes your opportunity. And now, of course, that we are hopefully at a point of small, stable, more sort of normal times, then actually you can offer both. So then actually you can reach and help the people that want to tap into that online, and they may not have the luxury of being close enough to you to be able to come and come on one of your retreats, but they can at least get the benefit of being able to go for the downloadable course. So I think it extends the reach and the opportunity for you, and actually the flip side of that, it extends the opportunity for those people who need to know about you and want to access what you can offer. So I think there is, now you're in a in that sort of perfect position. So let's talk about you. I mean, I think we've really got a sense of what you offer and how you help women, and I mean, it's lovely sort of seeing the comments that are coming in on the live on this. And but let's talk about you as a business owner, and you've been an author, a journalist, and now running your own retreats, but you're running a business as well. And so what do you find is some of the most rewarding parts of what you do as a business owner, and how you help women?
I've never worked in a corporate environment other than when I was on a magazine and on the newspaper. So I've always been a sole trader, if you like, or self-employed. And I set up my business was purely passion-led, and the most rewarding thing for me is working with other women. So my business, in a way, it's a lifestyle business. It's me, and then I bring in others as and when, just to pursue my passion, or what's worked for me, and I want to share it with other women. So I don't know if that answers your question. In terms of businesses, I did go down a route of getting investment, and then I had quite a lot of investment pledged, and then I suddenly decided I didn't want to be answerable to my investors. I wanted to be more organic with what I did, and that's partly my own personality, to be honest.
But I think that's a very interesting point you made, because I think that ties in. So it's in tune with what you are also doing as a business, as a service, which is all about authenticity, being true to yourself, and yes. So you've kind of tried something which is going out and getting that external investment, and it didn't feel quite right. You needed to grow in this way, and so it's almost as if the ethos, either consciously or otherwise, is reinforcing what you're offering, which is that sense of real connection, real being true, being real to yourself. And so you, as a business person, is also being true to yourself as well. And I love this comment that you come out with about how women irrigate each other and lift each other up. And I think it's that, again, it sort of ties in that sense of sort of fertility, that sense of abundance and joy that you bring to people. And I find that is it's very refreshing.
Oh, well, yes, thank you for making that analogy. It's true, that authenticity. And I think this sort of work goes best through word of mouth. I get a lot of referrals through those who've done the workshops, been on the retreats, done the course and loved it. It's the nature of the work, I think. I mean, I should be slightly more organized, I think, with marketing. That is, and I put my hand on my heart, I don't have a business training. Everything comes from my intuitive place inside, and it works.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, so with that in mind, what would you say to someone, because we have so many people on this call who are, they may be running their own business, thinking about launching their own business, some people in the wellness area, some people very focused on women's health and and well-being. What would be your advice to someone thinking about starting their business, or what would you impart to them?
I'm sure, Sarah, all people that you ask this question to, I'm sure we all say pretty much the same thing, which is pursue something that you're passionate about, because then that carries its own momentum. It follows its own trajectory because it's led for, it comes from your heart. But I suppose, more objectively speaking, decide whether you want a lifestyle business or you want to really make money and build a business and sell it in a number of years to come, and then go out and seek investment. And there's a lot of, especially with women, that there are, because I've been down this route, there are women who advise women on seeking investment, because as the stats go, investment into women's businesses is something like 5% compared to men. I mean, we're still talking about taboos in the patriarchal society where I think we're still suffering, or even in the realm of raising investment. I've learned that. So if that's a route you want to go, I think I was too old, I'm in my mid-50s, and I just want to enjoy what I do, and I get the most happiness from being with other women, from continually learning. I'm going to, I have a Tantra teacher, I'm going to a Tantra weekend this weekend, and I hope I will learn some more from this Tantra festival, and then I will weave that into my offerings. And I'm quite lucky because I've worked in the spa industry around the world for so many years, so I'm now taking contacts is another thing, isn't it? You know that. We all know that, especially at this age. It's who you know as much as what you know. And I know many people in the global spa industry, so I'm taking my workshops out to spas in the Maldives, the Abu Dhabi, America, coming up. That's through my contacts, and because, as what you say, this whole idea, wellness is huge. It's a $3 trillion business. Everything is wellness now, and yet we've also got highest levels of chronic disease. I mean, what's going on there? But within this very noisy wellness conversation, I think there's still room to work on this, on our authentic feminine, going back to where we started.
I couldn't agree with you more. And
so
listen,
there's a lot of
been an
interest
absolute
in my industry and for women to come and do this. Yeah, especially women in the Middle East, they love this. So I'm really excited to go and work in the Middle East.
Sophie, it's pure joy talking to you, and we've been on a long time, and thank you to everyone that's popped in questions and and popped comments on along the way. And I guess my last question to you is that obviously you've come a long way in what you've done, and the last couple of years you've managed to launch your downloadable products online and everything else. And if we're looking at the rearview mirror in another couple of years' time, what will you be looking back and saying, I did this? What's your dream? And looking out.
Oh, my dream is to spread my message, which isn't my message. It's a basket of messages that have worked for me. So I'm convinced that they will support many other women too. So my dream is to just continue. and reach more women, and for more women to wake up to their authentic feminine selves in whatever way they do. I can just be a little inspiration, but I hope that we women find our authentic selves and power, which isn't perhaps in the masculine way that we've been living for so many decades, for centuries really, but just for women to be happy, especially in midlife, to be happy, to find flow, to find peace. I think that's through a connection with our bodies and authentic feminine selves, and that will bring me joy, because we're all part of womanhood and we want to support each other.
Sophie, I have loved talking to you this morning, and I know that everybody has enjoyed listening to you, and we always say this to everybody. Look, we've been sort of watching you in this privileged position of being able to listen to you live, but we will share this on our IGTV channel, and we'll pop this on our YouTube channel and share it across all the other platforms. And if you've enjoyed this and you think this is a message that you would like to share with your own contacts and networks, please don't keep it to yourself. Then share the recording onwards, because it's so important. It's a very important message you're sharing about about breaking these taboos, about being in just connection with our true authentic selves. And I absolutely love that comment that we got earlier on about this is so energizing and so empowering. So Sophie, thank you so much for your time this morning, and thank you for sharing your authentic self.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. Thank you for understanding, asking such great questions. I've really enjoyed it.
It's been a joy. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.